The stars shone brightly against the deep black of space as Commander Alan Brooks floated inside the observation deck of the research vessel Endeavour. Earth looked like a small blue marble from this distance, near the edge of the solar system. Alan and his crew of 50 men had been sent to investigate strange energy readings that NASA had detected 2 months ago. "Commander, you should see this," called Greg Summers, the communications officer. His voice sounded tense over the ship's intercom. Alan pushed himself away from the window and moved through the zero-gravity environment toward the bridge. When he arrived, the crew members were staring at their screens with wide eyes. "What is it?" Alan asked. Greg pointed to the radar display. "Sir, there's something big approaching. Very big. And it's not one of ours." The object was moving fast, much faster than any human spacecraft could travel. Alan felt his heart beat faster. After years of searching the skies and wondering if humanity was alone in the universe, was this finally the moment of first contact? "Send a message on all frequencies," Alan ordered. "Tell them we come in peace." Before Greg could send the message, the lights on the Endeavour flickered. The ship shuddered. Outside the windows, a massive vessel appeared, seeming to materialize out of nowhere. It was at least 20 times the size of their research ship, with a smooth metallic surface that reflected the distant sunlight. "My God," whispered Alan. A strange beam of purple light shot out from the alien ship, enveloping the Endeavour. The men felt a tingling sensation throughout their bodies. Computer systems shut down one by one. "We're losing power," shouted Jack Peters, the engineer. "Everything's failing." Alan tried to remain calm. "Everyone, secure yourselves. We don't know what's happening, but—" He never finished his sentence. The purple light intensified, and all 51 men on the Endeavour suddenly felt their bodies become weightless, even more so than in the normal zero gravity of space. The walls of their ship seemed to fade away, and they found themselves being pulled through space toward the alien vessel. Back on Earth, NASA's mission control erupted in panic as they lost all contact with the Endeavour. "What just happened?" demanded Director Frank Bennett, staring at the screens that had gone dark. "Sir, we've lost all signals from the Endeavour," said a technician. "1 second they were there, and the next, nothing." "Could it be equipment failure?" asked Frank. "All systems simultaneously." "Impossible," replied the head engineer. "Something happened to that ship." Meanwhile, Alan and his men found themselves in a vast room with gleaming metal walls. The floor beneath them hummed with energy. Strange symbols covered the walls, glowing with blue light. The air smelled different, cleaner somehow, but with an unfamiliar scent. "Is everyone all right?" Alan called out, looking around at his disoriented crew. Before anyone could answer, a door slid open in the wall. 3 tall figures entered. They walked on 2 legs, but looked nothing like humans. Their skin was pale blue, with patterns that seemed to shift and change. They had 4 arms, each and large, dark eyes that took up most of their faces. One of the aliens stepped forward and raised a small device. It spoke, and the device translated in a flat, mechanical voice. "Humans, you are now property of the Galactic Empire. Resistance is pointless." Alan stepped forward, putting himself between his crew and the aliens. "We are representatives of Earth. We demand to know why you've taken us and what you want." The aliens' eyes narrowed. The translator spoke again. "Interesting. The males of your species show unusual courage. This confirms our research. You will be excellent subjects." More aliens entered the room, carrying strange weapons. Alan and his men were separated and taken down long corridors to small cell-like rooms. Through windows in the walls, Alan could see stars streaking by. The ship was moving, taking them far from Earth. As he sat alone in his cell, Alan made a silent promise. Somehow he would find a way to warn Earth. And somehow he would get his men home. Days turned into weeks aboard the alien ship. Alan lost track of time as the stars outside his small window changed patterns he didn't recognize. The men were kept in separate cells, but were brought together for what the aliens called testing. Today, Alan and 15 others stood in a large white room. Machines hummed around them. A tall alien with pale green skin and 4 arms walked around them, studying them through large black eyes. This was Salthor, the lead scientist. Unlike the others, his translator was better. "Run," Salthor ordered, pointing to a track that circled the room. The men began to run. Hidden devices in the floor gave small shocks if they slowed down. Alan kept his face blank even as sweat poured down his face. They had been running for almost an hour. Beside him, a younger crew member named Pete fell to his knees, gasping. "Get up," Alan whispered. "Don't show weakness." Zalthar walked over, making notes on a glowing tablet. "Interesting. Your bodies are inefficient but persistent. You continue even when in pain." Alan helped Pete up. "We stick together," he said loud enough for all to hear. Later, back in his cell, Alan heard a tapping sound from the wall. He pressed his ear against it. The tapping continued in a pattern. Morse code. It was Greg Summers, the communications expert. CAANYOUHEAARME. Greg tapped. Alan tapped back. IES. Over the next days, Alan and Greg communicated through the wall. Greg had made a discovery. "I started to understand their language," he tapped one night. "They call themselves the Zorellians. They're part of something called the Galactic Empire. Why did they take us?" Alan tapped back. "They're studying humans, especially human males. They think we're good for fighting." This confirmed what Alan had suspected. The aliens weren't just curious. They wanted something from humans. During the next testing session, Alan paid close attention to everything around him. He noticed how the aliens typed on their computers, which doors they used, and how many guards watched them. One alien seemed different from the others. This guard was shorter, with reddish skin and only 2 arms. The others called him Kral. He was from a species called the Brontari. When no one was looking, Kral slipped extra water to the exhausted men. After a particularly hard day of tests, Alan found himself alone with Kral for a moment. "Why are you helping us?" Alan asked quietly. Kral looked around nervously. "My people were conquered too," he whispered. "We know what it is to be prisoners." "Where are they taking us?" Alan asked. "Selthoria, main research planet. We arrive soon." The next day, Alan felt the ship slow down. Through his window, he saw a large planet with 2 moons. The ship descended through purple clouds. When the ship landed, the men were lined up and marched out. Alan gasped at what he saw. A massive city spread out before them, with buildings taller than any on Earth. Strange vehicles flew through the air. Aliens of different shapes and colors moved about. Some had 6 legs, others floated instead of walking. The humans were taken to a large building with no windows. Inside, the corridors seemed endless. Finally, they arrived at a new set of cells, larger than the ones on the ship. As the door to his cell closed, Alan saw something that gave him hope. A small vent near the floor. Maybe big enough to fit something inside. If he could get a message out somehow, find a way to contact Earth. That night, as the strange planet's 3 suns set, Alan gathered the men who had cells near his. Using taps and whispers, he told them his plan. "We need to learn everything we can," he said. "Their language, their technology, their weaknesses. Greg is already making progress with the language." "But what's the point?" asked Jack, his voice low with despair. "Earth doesn't know where we are. No one is coming for us." Alan's eyes hardened with determination. "Then we'll have to find a way to tell them." 6 months had passed since the Endeavour disappeared. On Earth, NASA had moved on to other missions, classifying the loss as a tragic accident. The families of the 51 men still grieved, but the world continued to turn. Lieutenant Samantha Carter worked the night shift at a listening station in Alaska. The facility was designed to pick up signals from deep space, mostly for research purposes. It was quiet work, and tonight was no different. Samantha sipped her coffee and stared at the screen showing normal patterns of cosmic noise. Then something changed. A pattern appeared, repeating itself every 30 seconds. Samantha sat up straight. "That's not normal," she said to herself. She adjusted some controls, trying to clean up the signal. The pattern became clearer. It wasn't random. It was structured, like a code. Samantha's hands trembled as she began to record the signal. She had studied various codes during her training, and this looked familiar. "Morse code," she whispered. From deep space, she began to translate the repeating pattern. Letters appeared on her screen. EAOTHCAPTUO EDAALIENS 5 to 0 MENSENDHELP. Samantha stared at the message, her coffee forgotten. This had to be a joke. But the signal was coming from light years away, far beyond where any human craft had ever traveled. She called her supervisor, who arrived looking annoyed at being woken up. His expression changed when he saw the message. "Where is this coming from?" he asked. Samantha pointed to a star map. "Somewhere in this region, about 20 light years away." "That's impossible. We don't have anything out there." "Exactly," said Samantha. "But someone, or something, is sending us a message in Morse code." Within hours, the message reached NASA headquarters. Director Frank Bennett was pulled from his bed at 3 a.m. He stared at the printout, recognizing the coordinates included in the longer message. "These are the last known coordinates of the Endeavour," he said, "before we lost contact." The message was passed up the chain of command. By morning, the president knew. By afternoon, the United Nations Security Council was called into emergency session. President Laura Mitchell stood before the assembled world leaders, her face grim. "We have received a message from deep space," she said. "We believe it comes from the crew of the Endeavour, the research vessel that disappeared 6 months ago." Murmurs filled the room. On screens around the world, people watched, confusion on their faces. "The message indicates that the crew was captured by an alien civilization," President Mitchell continued. "This confirms what many have suspected throughout human history. We are not alone in the universe." Panic spread across the globe. Some people didn't believe it. Others prepared for the end of the world. Religious leaders offered different interpretations. Scientists demanded more evidence. In a secure military base, Samantha was brought in to join a team analyzing the message. More signals had arrived, providing additional information. "The aliens call themselves the Galactic Empire," she explained to the gathered officials. "They're holding our people on a planet called Selthoria for research purposes." "Research on what?" asked General John Miller. "On humans, specifically human males. They're interested in our physical capabilities and potential for warfare." Director Bennett spoke up. "The crew managed to build some kind of transmitter using parts they stole. That's how they sent the message." President Mitchell looked at the assembled experts. "What are our options?" An older scientist named Dr. William Harris cleared his throat. "Madam President, we've been working on faster-than-light travel theories for decades. It's always been theoretical. But with this confirmation of alien life, we need to make it real." "How long would that take?" asked the president. "Years, normally," said Dr. Harris. "But if we pool global resources, share all our research and work around the clock, maybe 1 year." President Mitchell stood up. "Then that's what we'll do. I'm declaring a global emergency. All nations must work together. We will build ships that can reach our people. And when we do," her voice hardened, "we will show these aliens what happens when you take what belongs to Earth." 1 year later, a ship unlike any built before stood ready in a secret launch facility. The EDS Defiant gleamed under the spotlights, its hull made of new materials developed by scientists working around the clock. Inside, it held weapons and technology that didn't exist a year ago. Captain Olivia Martinez walked along the ship's bridge, checking each station. She had been chosen to lead this mission from among thousands of volunteers. Her background in both military tactics and spaceflight made her the perfect choice. "Status report," she said to her crew of 20. "All systems ready, Captain," replied First Officer Paul Jackson. "The new drive is at full power." Olivia nodded. This ship could travel faster than light, something that had been impossible before the alien message arrived. Human innovation, driven by necessity, had accomplished in 1 year what might have taken decades. At the research facility on Selthoria, Alan Brooks looked much older than a year ago. The experiments had grown worse. The aliens had learned that humans could withstand pain and stress better than other species they had studied. This had only made them more interested. Today, Alan was strapped to a table as Sulfur examined the results of the latest test. 5 other men lay on similar tables nearby, their faces tight with pain. "Your species continues to surprise us," said Sulfur. "Most test subjects would have died from this level of stress." Alan said nothing. He had learned to keep his thoughts hidden. The aliens didn't know that he and the other men had been working on a plan. Later that night, Krull, the sympathetic guard, came to Alan's cell. "They're moving you tomorrow," Krull whispered, "to the central facility. More intense tests." Alan's heart sank. The central facility was where other alien test subjects had been sent. None had returned. "How many of us?" Alan asked. "All of you," Krull replied. "The High Command is impressed with your results." After Krull left, Alan tapped on the wall to Greg in the next cell. "It's happening tomorrow. We have to be ready." The next morning, as the men were being led through the corridors by armed guards, alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Red lights flashed. "What's happening?" one of the guards asked. A voice came over the speakers in the alien language. Greg, who had become fluent, translated for the men. "They're saying there's an unidentified ship approaching. It's not responding to signals." The guards looked nervous. This had never happened before. The Galactic Empire controlled this sector completely. Outside, in the space above Selthoria, the EDS Defiant dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Its stealth systems, modeled after studying the alien signal, hid it from most of the planet's sensors. "We're in position," Olivia said to her crew. "Launch the landing craft." A smaller ship detached from the Defiant and headed toward the planet's surface. On board were 12 soldiers, all trained for this mission. Back in the research facility, the alarms grew louder. The guards received new orders and began rushing the human prisoners toward a secure area. "This is it," Alan whispered to the men. "Whatever happens, stick together." Suddenly, an explosion rocked the corridor. Smoke filled the air. The guards raised their weapons, looking for the threat. Through the smoke came figures in strange suits. They fired weapons that made no sound but dropped the alien guards instantly. One of the figures approached Alan. The helmet visor lifted, revealing the human face, a woman with determined eyes. "Commander Brooks," she asked. "I'm Captain Martinez. We're here to take you home." Alan couldn't believe what he was seeing. "Earth sent you." "How?" "We got your message," she said, helping him stand. "The whole planet worked together to get here. Now let's move. We don't have much time." As the rescue team led the prisoners toward the exit, another alarm sounded. Greg listened to the announcement. "They're calling for reinforcements," he said. "The whole Imperial fleet." Ellen looked at his men, weak from a year of tests, but determination in their eyes. "We need to get everyone out." "Already working on it," said Martinez. "Our ship is waiting." Ellen made a decision. "Get them to safety. I'll hold them off and make sure everyone gets out." Martinez started to argue, but the sound of approaching guards cut her short. Alan grabbed a weapon from one of the fallen guards. "Go," he shouted. "Tell Earth what's happening here. They need to be ready." The EDS Defiant raced through space, carrying 49 rescued men back to Earth. One man was left behind. Commander Alan Brooks had sacrificed himself so the others could escape. Captain Martinez stood on the bridge, her face grim as she sent a message home about their success and the price paid. On the imperial capital world of Zorellus Prime, Emperor Zoltar received news of the escape. His 4 eyes narrowed as he looked at Grand Admiral Drexus kneeling before him. Humans broke into our most secure facility. Zoltar asked, his voice cold. How is this possible? Drexus kept his head down. They have technology we didn't expect, Emperor. They built faster than light ships in just 1 year. Zoltar stood up from his crystal throne. He was taller than most of his kind, with skin that shifted colors with his mood. Right now, it was deep red with anger. These humans are more dangerous than we thought, he said. They came for their people. They will want revenge for what we did. What are your orders, Emperor? Asked Drexus. Prepare the Armada. We will strike their world before they can build more ships. On Earth, the Defiant landed to cheers and tears. The rescued men were reunited with families who had thought them dead. Greg Summers, still weak from the tests, hugged his wife and children for the first time in over a year. Where's Alan? Asked NASA Director Bennett as he greeted the returning ship. Captain Martinez shook her head. He stayed behind to make sure everyone else got out. He's been recaptured. The news spread quickly. Alan Brooks became a symbol of human sacrifice. His face appeared on screens worldwide. President Mitchell used his example to rally more support for what was coming. We rescued our people, she said in a worldwide broadcast. But one man remains captive, and we have learned that the Galactic Empire sees us as a threat. Our intelligence suggests they are planning to attack Earth. In orbit around Mars, Earth had built defensive platforms using the new technology. Scientists worked nonstop to develop better weapons. Ships similar to the Defiant were under construction in secret facilities around the world. Admiral Joe Russell, in charge of Earth's new space fleet, received the first warning from a deep space monitoring station. Multiple ships just appeared at the edge of our solar system, reported Lieutenant Samantha Carter, who had been promoted after discovering the original message. They're big, sir. Bigger than anything we've built. Battle stations, Russell ordered. This is not a drill. The Imperial Armada moved toward Earth, led by Drexus himself aboard the Dreadnought Sovereign. The Admiral looked at the blue planet on his screen. Such a small world to cause so much trouble, he said to his officers. We will teach them their place in the galaxy. The first battle happened near Mars. Earth's 5 completed ships met 30 Imperial vessels. The humans were outnumbered, but they fought with surprising skill. Their ships were smaller and faster, hard to hit with the Empire's heavy weapons. Admiral Russell watched from his command ship as 2 Imperial cruisers exploded. Press the attack. Don't give them time to regroup. But there were too many enemy ships. The Earth vessels took heavy damage. Russell's own ship shook as it was hit repeatedly. We can't hold them, his second-in-command said. We don't need to win, Russell replied. We just need to slow them down. On Earth, people watched the battle through telescopes and space cameras. They saw Earth ships fighting bravely against the much larger alien fleet. They saw explosions in the darkness of space. They felt fear, but also pride. Then the Imperial ships broke through. They entered Earth orbit and began firing on military bases around the planet. Cities were spared, but every space center, every military installation was targeted. Thousands died in the first hour. In the White House Situation Room, President Mitchell received the reports with a stone face. When the last one came in, she stood up. They've struck the first blow, she said to her advisors. Now they'll see how humans fight when everything is at stake. She turned to General Miller. Implement Operation Firewall. Yes, Madam President, he replied. Mitchell faced the cameras that would carry her words to every survivor around the world. Her voice was steady and strong. Citizens of Earth, today the Galactic Empire has attacked our planet. They believe they can defeat us with superior numbers and technology. They are wrong. As of this moment, Earth is at war. Not just any war, but total war. Every resource, every mind, every hand will be dedicated to one purpose: victory. Grand Admiral Drexus stood on the bridge of the Sovereign, watching Earth through the viewscreen. The attack had gone well. Most of the planet's military bases lay in ruins. The small fleet that tried to stop them had been crushed. The humans have been taught their lesson. Drexus said to his officers, "Now we will accept their surrender." His communications officer turned from his station. "Admiral, we're detecting thousands of small objects launching from Earth. Debris from our attack." Drexus asked. "No, sir. They're powered, and they're heading toward our ships." Across Earth, hidden facilities opened. From underground bunkers, mountain caves, and underwater bases came thousands of small ships. Each was barely large enough for 2 pilots. They had been built in secret, even as the larger warships fought near Mars. Admiral Joe Russell had survived the earlier battle. Now he coordinated from a bunker deep under the Rocky Mountains. "Launch all craft," he ordered. "Remember the plan. Hit and run. Don't stay in one place." The small Earth ships swarmed toward the Imperial fleet. They were too small for the big Imperial guns to target effectively. They darted between the massive alien vessels, firing precisely at weak points that the rescued men had identified during their captivity. In his command center, Russell watched the screens as the first Imperial ship exploded. "It's working," he said to his staff. "Their shields can't stop our new weapons." On the Sovereign, Drexus watched in shock as 3 of his ships burst into flames. The small human vessels were everywhere, too fast to catch, too numerous to stop. "Impossible," he whispered. "They couldn't have built so many ships so quickly." What Drexus didn't know was that Earth had not tried to match the Empire's huge vessels. Instead, they had built simple, small craft that could be produced quickly in factories around the world. Ordinary car factories now made spacecraft engines. Computer companies made targeting systems. The entire planet worked together. Meanwhile, in a secret lab under Geneva, Dr. Helen Weaver led a team working on another weapon. They had studied the technology from the captured alien equipment. Now they had created a virus that could infect Imperial computer systems. "The virus is ready," Dr. Weaver told President Mitchell over a secure line. "If we can get it into their main network, it will shut down their ship systems." "How do we deliver it?" the President asked. "We need someone inside their network, someone with access." On Zorellus Prime, Alan Brooks was brought before Emperor Zoltar. After his recapture on Xelphoria, Alan had been moved to the Imperial capital for special interrogation. Despite weeks of questioning, he had revealed nothing important. "Your people fight well," Zoltar said, his skin shifting to a curious purple color. "Why do you resist? The Empire spans 1,000 worlds. Earth is just one small planet." Alan stood straight despite his injuries. "Because we're human. We don't surrender what's ours. You took 50 of our men. Now you face billions of us. Your confidence is misplaced," Zoltar said. "My armada will crush your world." Alan smiled. "You still don't understand us. Humans don't think like you. We adapt. We find weaknesses. We never give up." Back in space, the battle continued. The Imperial fleet had lost 12 ships now. The smaller human vessels darted away, then returned in different patterns. They attacked supply ships, communication relays, anything that would disrupt the Imperial operations. Admiral Russell received a new report. "Sir, Imperial ships are appearing near Jupiter. They're calling for reinforcements." Russell had expected this. "Implement Phase 2, he ordered. Across the solar system, hidden human outposts activated special devices. These jammers, based on Imperial technology, disrupted faster-than-light communications. The Imperial ships near Jupiter couldn't call home. On Imperial colonies throughout nearby star systems, reports began coming in of attacks by unknown ships. Human vessels, built after the first wave, had slipped out of the solar system while the main Imperial fleet focused on Earth. Now they struck Imperial outposts, freeing slaves and destroying military facilities. Drexus received the scattered reports with growing alarm. What had seemed like a simple punishment mission was turning into something much more dangerous. The humans weren't fighting like a primitive species. They were fighting like hardened warriors who knew Imperial tactics. How could they know so much about us? He asked his senior officers. One of them had a disturbing answer. The men we captured, Admiral. We tested them, but they were studying us too. 2 years passed. The war between Earth and the Galactic Empire spread across dozens of star systems. What the Empire had expected to be a quick victory had turned into a long, painful conflict. Captain Olivia Martinez, now Admiral Martinez after Russell's death in the Battle of Saturn, stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Freedom. The ship was larger than the original Defiant, built with technology humans had captured or copied from Imperial vessels. Status report, Martinez said to her officers. The Vega system is secure, Admiral, replied her second-in-command. The Empire pulled back their forces last night. Martinez nodded. This was the third system the Empire had abandoned in the past month. Their once mighty armada was stretched thin. What the Empire hadn't expected was for other species to join the humans. 3 alien races that had been conquered long ago saw their chance for freedom. The Brontari were the first to rebel, led by Krall, who had helped the humans on Sulphoria. Then came the Narthal and the Quillari. All had suffered under Imperial rule. Martinez looked at the star map showing the current battle lines. They're falling back to protect their core worlds, she said. It's time for the final push. On Zorellus Prime, Emperor Zoltar faced an angry council of Imperial leaders. How could this happen? Demanded a High Minister. They were primitives from one small world. Zoltar's skin had lost its bright colors, now a dull gray of stress and fear. We underestimated them. They fight like nothing we've seen before. The outer colonies are in full revolt, said another minister. The slave races have joined the humans. We've lost a quarter of our territory. Zoltar looked out the window at the capital city. Even here, things had changed. Food was rationed. Security forces patrolled the streets. Fear had come to the heart of the Empire. In a prison beneath the Imperial Palace, Alan Brooks sat in a cell. 2 years of captivity had not broken him. If anything, he had grown stronger in his determination. The guards had stopped trying to make him talk. Now they mostly left him alone. Today it was different. The door to his cell opened, and in walked Sulphur, the scientist who had run the tests on Sulphoria. Your species continues to surprise us, Sulphur said. We tend to do that, Alan replied. I've come to ask you something important, Sulphur said, lowering his voice. There are those of us who believe this war must end. The Empire is crumbling from within. Too many resources spent fighting, too many systems in revolt. Alan studied the alien's face. What are you suggesting? Help us negotiate peace with your people, before the Emperor leads us all to destruction. This was what Alan had been waiting for. Over the past 2 years, he had built a network of contacts within the palace. Guards who whispered information, servants who passed messages. He had been working to create division within the Imperial government. I'll need to send a message to Earth, Alan said. That can be arranged, Sulphur replied. Across the galaxy, on a planet that had once been an Imperial stronghold, a meeting took place between human leaders and representatives of the 3 allied alien species. They gathered in a large room with a circular table, a symbol of their equality. Our forces are ready, said Krall, now a general in the Brontari Freedom Army. The path to Zorellus Prime is open. President Mitchell, who had traveled from Earth for this historic meeting, looked at her allies. This will be the largest attack of the war. If we succeed, we can end this conflict. The Narthal ships will lead the way, said their representative, a tall being with silver skin. Our vessels are the fastest. The Quillari will provide ground forces. added their leader, a four-armed warrior. We know the capital city well. Many of us were slaves there. As they discussed the final plans, a message arrived. An officer handed it to President Mitchell, who read it with surprise. "It's from Commander Brooks," she said. "He's alive. And he says there's a faction within the Empire ready to surrender." The room fell silent. After 2 years of brutal war, the end might come not through a final battle, but through division within the Empire itself. "Can we trust this?" asked Krall. Martinez, who had been studying the message, looked up. "The authentication code is correct. This came from Alan." "Then we have a choice," said Mitchell. "Continue with our attack plan, or attempt to end this with fewer lives lost." "Why not both?" Martinez suggested. "Prepare for the attack, but send a small team to contact these Imperial rebels. If it's a trap, we're ready for war. If it's genuine, we're ready for peace." Everyone agreed this was the wisest course. The meeting continued as they selected who would lead this dangerous mission into the heart of the Empire. The combined fleet of human and allied ships appeared above Zorellus Prime, thousands of vessels of all sizes. On the main flagship, Admiral Martinez and President Mitchell stood together, watching the Imperial homeworld grow larger on the view screen. "No response to our messages," reported the communications officer. "Emperor Zoltar won't surrender," Martinez said. "But according to Alan's information, we have allies down there." A small team had already gone ahead. Captain Steve Daniels, once a junior officer on the Endeavor, led a group of 10 human soldiers and 5 aliens through the underground passages beneath the Imperial Palace. With them was Greg Summers, whose knowledge of Imperial language and systems had proven invaluable. "This way," Greg whispered, consulting a small device that showed a map smuggled out by Xalfor. "The central security hub should be just ahead." They moved silently through dimly lit corridors. Alarms blared in distant parts of the palace as the fleet arrived in orbit. Most guards had rushed to defend the upper levels, leaving these passages nearly empty. At the security hub, they found 3 guards. Steve signaled his team, and they struck quickly. The guards were stunned before they could raise an alarm. Greg sat at the control panel. "I can access the prison level from here," he said, fingers moving across the alien keyboard. "And I can shut down the palace defenses." In the throne room above, Emperor Zoltar faced his council. "The humans have come with their allies," he said, his skin now a pale white of fear. "But we will never surrender." Grand Admiral Drexus, older and scarred from battles, bowed his head. "The defense fleet is in position, Emperor. We will fight to the last ship." A side door opened, and Sulfur entered with several other Imperial officials. "There is another option, Emperor. We can end this war now, while our civilization still stands." Zoltar's eyes narrowed. "You speak of surrender. That is treason." "I speak of survival," Sulfur replied. "Look what this war has cost us already. Half our territories lost. 3 slave races in full revolt. Our economy collapsing." Other council members nodded. Zoltar saw he was losing control. He reached for the weapon at his side, but before he could draw it, the main doors to the throne room burst open. Alan Brooks walked in, flanked by Steve Daniels and Greg Summers. Behind them came soldiers, human and alien. Alan had been freed from his cell minutes earlier and had rushed to the throne room. "It's over, Emperor," Alan said. "Your palace is secured. Your defense grid is down. The fleet above is ready to reduce this city to ash." Zoltar looked at the humans with hatred. "You destroy everything you touch," he snarled. "No," Alan replied calmly. "You started this when you took 50 men from our world. We're finishing it. But how it ends is up to you." In orbit, Martinez received the signal from Steve's team. "The palace is secured," she told President Mitchell. "Alan is alive and negotiating with the Imperial leadership." Mitchell nodded. "Tell the fleet to hold position. Let's see if we can end this without more bloodshed." 3 days later, In the Grand Hall of the Imperial Palace, representatives from Earth and its allies sat across from the new Imperial Council. Zoltar had been removed from power. Zoltar and other moderates now led the Empire. President Mitchell signed the peace treaty with a pen brought from Earth. The Imperial representatives used their own ceremonial markers. Each signature represented the end of the war and the beginning of a new era. The Galactic Empire acknowledges the independence of Earth and all formerly subjugated worlds that wish for freedom, read the first line of the treaty. After the ceremony, Alan stood with Martinez and Greg on a balcony overlooking the capital city. "Hard to believe it's over," Greg said. 3 years since they took us from the Endeavor. "It's not over," Alan replied. "It's just beginning. Humans are part of the galactic community now. We can't go back to thinking we're alone in the universe." Martinez looked at the stars above. "What will you do now?" "Return to Earth." Alan shook his head. "President Mitchell asked me to stay as Earth's first ambassador. We have a lot to learn about our neighbors, and they have a lot to learn about us." On Earth, people celebrated the news of peace. In a park in Washington, D.C., workers unveiled a new memorial. It was a simple stone wall with 51 names. The crew of the Endeavor. Below the names was an inscription. They were taken against their will, but their capture awakened the strength of humanity. From their trial came our triumph. From their pain came our peace. The last name on the memorial was Commander Alan Brooks. Though he lived, his old life had ended the day the aliens came. What began as a story of captivity had become a legend of how humanity took its place among the stars.